All right, we are calling to order the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District regular meeting on Wednesday, February 13th at 6:08 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Chelsea, would you like to take roll, please? Chair McMillan, present. Vice Chair Witt.
Present.
Director Reed. Here. Director Baucom.
Here.
Director Marshall.
Present.
Okay. Item number 2 on the agenda is public expression of non-agendized items. Is there anyone in the gallery wishing to comment on items that are not on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Yes, I was here last month. My name is Steve Honeycutt with Gillen Inc. And last month I asked for some attention to be paid to our need for a will-serve letter for the Vineyard Crossing subdivision off of Lover's Lane. I'm here again to repeat that request. I hope that your acquisition of a general manager expedites that. But I doubt that he's going to be up to speed quick as we need. I need this board to support, particularly now that you've apparently agreed on what an ESSU is, that I be allowed to negotiate or discuss. If you've got problems with commitment of some sort, let's figure it out. But we have got to find a way to move forward.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the gallery wishing to comment on an item that's not on the agenda? No? Okay. See none. Item number 3, approval of board meeting minutes. Does anybody from the gallery wish to comment on the minutes? No board members, do you want to make any changes or anything to the minutes?
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Director Reed to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second by Director Marshall. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I'll abstain from the one that I wasn't here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, me too.
With 2 abstentions and 3 yes. Okay, thank you. Number 4 is the consent calendar. We did not receive a report from the city for November and December 2018, so that is not included in this. So you would be accepting a consent calendar for the first 2 items only.
I saw both of those reports in emails sent to the district, and I was CC'd on both of them.
I did not receive it.
Yeah, I think they're going to your interim manager and not to the office, but I've seen them all. They've all been sent.
To the district manager
Maybe they
email?
come to Mark, yeah.
His personal, or because I get all his emails from him.
I don't know, but I've definitely seen them all.
So we haven't received any in the district manager email box or the assistant email box for district manager. Those are the 2 emails we have at the office.
If I would have received it, it would have been.
If you could coordinate, please, and we'll make sure we have the correct email address.
They've been sent all the way through January.
So even if they send it to somebody we've contracted with, every email to the district should be at least CC'd to the district manager email so that we have an official record of it at the district manager
That
office.
is the email.
I got January's too, I just haven't received November's.
I've definitely seen it.
Yes.
Can I make a recommendation that Chelsea, if she doesn't receive it, that she follows up and
I did follow up with
the city?
Daphne, whatever her name is, Harris. And I emailed her on Monday and she never got back to me.
So she did email Daphne on Monday, and we still did not receive this.
Okay.
Okay. So the consent calendar would be the first 2 items only.
I'd like to pull the monthly expenses to talk about.
Okay. So both?
Just the expenses, not the check register.
Okay, so the consent calendar right now would only be the check register. Is there a motion to accept the consent calendar of just the check register?
I move to accept the check register.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we'll look at the pulled item, January expenses.
Just wondering now that the lawsuit is over, if we can have a detail for the law office expense for what the $25,000 was. Miscellaneous seems a bit vague. So I'd like to have a detail of what that is.
No.
We can't make that public because it could be possible pending litigation.
Though we have no pending litigation.
It's possible.
Well-
And our operating agreement with them calls for mediation, and that would be considered litigation. So if
However-
anything needs to go to mediation.
However, we can, it can be itemized in a closed session for us only to see, and we need to have it broken down and looked at what $25,000 was spent on in January, and I would go a step further saying that we need to pre-approve when the expenditures are this high every month. We need to pre-approve that. We've talked about that in the past.
So I can tell you that right now we are working on the attorneys are working on the ESSU calculation with the city and getting an agreement between the city and the district. They were working on the bond. That's a lot of it. We have weekly bond phone calls, and they're working on the bond agreement, and then we're also working on
Jail.
the jail and the budget. So there are 4 items. If you would like to go, if you would like to
Financials.
personally, and yeah, the financials. If you'd like to personally go look at the bill as a board member, you can. But certain
it-
items I can't just post publicly.
Is it itemized in the bill?
Yes, every 15 minutes is itemized. Maybe 10 minutes. Yeah.
Actually, that's every
0.10,
0.6.
0.6.
Every
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Yeah, every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes is itemized. Okay. So, is there a motion to accept the expenses?
I make a motion to accept the expenses.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? No. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action regarding hiring of new district manager. I'll let the gallery kind of decide. Having you speak now, you may have something to say a little bit later after you hear more about the contract. So I can open it up to public comment now, and then I can also open it up again to public comment later if you like. So right now, does anyone have any comment on item number 5 from the gallery? Yes, sir.
Will there be a contract that's discussed?
We are discussing a contract. It's,
Do we get any copies of that contract?
It's
over here. Thank you.
and it was also emailed out to everyone on our email list. And if anyone would like to be on the email list for our agendas and packets, please just, you can write your name and email address down and leave it on the back table, and we'll make sure you get outed. So I'm going to ask since there's no comments from the audience at this point, Mr. Gardner, can I ask you to come sit at the table with us, please, while we go through the contract? And would you guys like to hear from Mr. Gardner first, or would you like to jump straight into the contract?
Well,
And this is just a draft too. We're making
this
changes.
is the first that we've gotten to look at it, so I just have a lot of notes that I wanted to go over.
Okay, me too.
So I was wondering who wrote the contract, first of all.
I think they used the one from.
So we had a
What's the name?
template and that we used, and it was through the attorneys with Mr. Gardner also reviewing it. But not everything in here is how we talked when Ernie and I met with him. So there are some changes that I would like to see made in here as well, and I think Mr. Gardner also has a couple of changes. So this is where we get
A couple of years were made overnight.
yeah.
I see.
So we This is where we all have our input in on this contract and agree as a board with a vote whether to approve this or not. Okay? So, Mr. Garner, do you want to start the conversation or?
Sure. I'd like you all to know that I've been applying for this job for a full year now. Joe talked to me about this job a year ago. And he talked to me for 2.5 hours on what you were trying to do, where you thought it would go, and how my background might fit for everything that you had in mind. I think I formally applied for it 3 times. And what the job is, as far as what the contract would be, has changed several times. So I understand that you have hired contractors and you had a temporary guy, and that you initially thought you could make me a contractor, and you can't because state law doesn't allow it. So I'm going to be a full-time employee, and I'm the direct employee of the board. And I'm the only employee of the board, other than you can have Chelsea technically is an employee of the board. And if this district, we choose to later expand staff and everything, you know, they report to me and I report to you. And you guys get to tell me what to do and I tell them. You know, we've talked about this, and I've thought about it a lot after, you know, Teresa had made some comments, and I guess at this point, I have one minor comment and one substantive comment. The minor comment is on unused vacation and sick leave. I know that when we were chatting January 11th, I asked about that. It's rare for a district manager or general manager, particularly with, as I've come to understand, the amount of work that's going to be involved, to be able to take 20 days. And I would like you to allow something to be carried over to the following year. This doesn't make any provision if you have an accident or something like that. So, you know, I had suggested 200, but 100 hours is not a significant sum to carry on your books. And I would like you to let me carry 100 hours over unused. That's 2.5 weeks.
I haven't really, what's the benefit of that, Alan? Explain to me the benefit to you, because of the fact that, you know, in my business, I pay all my employees out. If they don't take it, I pay them out.
Okay.
And banking, you are required to take certain, you are required to take your vacation, and if you don't take it, it's a problem. Okay, so I deal with those 2 issues, but you know I don't see the benefit of carrying it forwards on our books. Why not just reconcile it every year and be done with it? I don't.
Well, here's why. I've been a senior executive or the leader of a utility for 30 years, and with what you have going, I mean, I've spent maybe 3.5 hours talking about what's going to come up with the lawyers and what they see that I'd be doing and things like that, and how much time I'd be spending. And because I see things in more detail, and I'm going to follow them through. I'm not going to let them just stay at a level if I see things underneath them. And I think it's unlikely that in the first year in particular, that I'd be able to take the time. I would take 75 years. But I'd like to be able to have it in reserve, so if somebody got sick or something, I'd have a little extra time if I didn't use it. I mean, it's nice to get the bonus at the end of the year, but a certain amount of time, you know, in the utilities, all the ones I've been in, you're allowed to carry over something. Now, I understand in the business you're in and in a lot of businesses, they just clean it out at the end of the year. Okay,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
But your guys aren't going to be doing the extra hours and things like that that a general manager or a district manager does, where they may not be able to if they're acting responsibly. And I act responsibly, and so I can't go on vacation or take time off if you have something important. I know I'm the one that's supposed to do it. Used to drive my wife crazy because she wanted to schedule a vacation or she wanted to go somewhere, and I said, I've got vacation coming up, or I got this coming up. I can't do that because I'm the one that has to handle it. And in your case, you're the board. I'm the one that handles it for you. And it's not a good excuse to you that, gee, I had to take vacation. You know, that doesn't cut it for me if I were you.
That
What if
cuts
you
it a
get
lot
paid
for
out?
me
Which
because
I don't. But that's if that's a.
This is minor.
If anybody else has an opinion, Chuck.
I don't have a problem with carryover as long as it's,
I do.
it's limited. You said 100 hours?
100 hours, that's 2.5 weeks,
Yeah.
no more.
The thing is
So,
that
I don't have a
vacation
problem
is
with
there because you do need to take time off. You can't just be here all the time. So in that vein, if you are carrying that time over, then you have more the next year. So you take more time off that next year.
And it may. Let me give you a specific example. I think I mentioned this to Teresa last night. I had a 5.5-year project through 3 legislative sessions. I built coalitions throughout the state of California. I provided, with a small committee, the leadership that changed how the Public Utility Commission is regulated and how telecommunications capabilities are regulated in California. One of those years, I had 9 days off because that's what it took to do it. And did I make up the time later? No, I got the time off. But in that year, I couldn't because it wasn't responsible. And again, it was hard at home. So for you, you're embarking on something new, implementing this. And I simply am asking you for the flexibility to be responsible for you. I feel that responsibility. It's my job to be that responsible. But by the same token, I'd like to be able to take the time
So
off
is
at
it
some
carrying over 2.5 weeks plus the 2.5 weeks that you get? So it'd be 5 weeks
It
total
would be
maximum?
It would be from a prior year only allowing 2.5 weeks, 100 hours to be carried forward.
So the total with the current year would be 200 hours that you could possibly take off in 1 year then?
Well, it would be, is that the right number?
220. Yeah.
220, yeah.
And
But
then what
mine-
happens if you didn't use it that year? We'd have to pay you for the portion, because you'd only carry over 220 and
No, I wouldn't carry over 220. The amount of carryover has to be limited to 100. That's what I'm asking for. So I would have to make it work so that I only had 100 left, or it would be paid out.
I see.
And the answer is if he didn't use if he carried over 100 hours to his second year, at the end of the second year, if he didn't use any of his leave during the second year, he would be entitled to the 15 days plus 100 hours.
But you'd have to pay him those
You'd have to
15
pay-
days, and he could carry the 100 hours if he wanted to into the third year.
No.
No?
Well,
Not the
Yeah.
previous 100,
not
but
the
the new
previous,
100.
but a new 100, and
So
you would
you-
keep. So you would keep.
You'd be paying out year 1, rolling over 100 from year 2, and you're entering the
Yeah.
three.
And it gets complicated.
That's why it gets
And
weird to me when
That's why.
you put it
That's why
in the
some
bank and go on
entities
vacation.
Just say,
I don't
and
understand it. But
I would just say to you, how are you going to feel if you... I don't want to be in the position of saying to you guys, well, you told me I had to take vacation, so I can't do this, and it's important I do this. But I can't do it because I have to take vacation.
But we're willing to pay it out.
We're
So you
paying
don't
it
have
out
to take a
though, so you
vacation.
don't have to take.
Unless you want to take 5 weeks vacation as you've
which
accrued
we'd
it at
still be
some
screwed,
point, which
so.
screws us all up. I don't, I don't know.
I don't do that.
To me, I'm not, but what's to me, that's That's the goal where you can take 2 months off.
And that's what it would entitle him to be able to do, is to take in the second year all of that vacation at once.
Well, that's impossible.
Whether he does it or
That's,
not,
but that is kind of
possibility.
where the mind jumps to, is like, is this gonna turn into like a month-long vacation where we're absent a manager? So that, okay,
That's,
is that,
that's absolutely not responsible.
well,
Or like you're saying, if you were to get hurt and need to take time off, you would use it.
Yeah, but that would be different, because I would be injured and I would be off, and at least I'd be paid for it. So otherwise,
and the thing about the vacation, you're kind of taking it throughout the year for either holidays and other things.
They're paid holidays, and that's
Paid
different.
holidays.
The paid holidays are completely separate from vacation or from sick
Just
leave.
do that,
Uh,
just
See something
taking-
else?
Well, he's standing
Yeah.
to say something.
Vacation and sick leave are completely different from paid holidays and
Yes.
from each other too, so.
And I think what the board's issue with this is we're a small district with one full-time person.
Right.
So if we roll over 100 hours, we could possibly lose our one full-time employee for more than 30 days while they're on
That's-
vacation.
well, first,
But that's how you're asking this contract to be written. So if we don't want that to happen, then we need to write this accordingly.
the way to do that is that when the district manager is going to be out of the district for more than, make it any number you want, but for more than 5 days, he has to have board permission.
So
Prior board approval, except for injury.
prior board approval for
Yeah.
vacation of more than 5 days?
I don't see changing it, so you guys can.
I mean,
mean,
that
I
would
have-
solve the problem
I
of,
have normally never taken more than 3 days off without advising the board. I just don't.
2 weeks.
Advising is one thing, approval of the board is a different thing,
2
and
weeks.
I'd have to actually check to see if you can condition vacation on approval of the board. because
Yeah.
Vacation is a right that you would have under the contract, and whether the board would have the ability to deny that at any point in time, I'm not so sure.
I have had that in my contracts where, because I'm the only technical at this point, you can't just take a vacation, you know? I mean, my first 2 years in some things, I had the phone and drove my wife nuts because I was getting calls the whole time I was gone. And in something like this, you know, for the first year or two, something like that can happen. You know, I would be surprised if it didn't. And so notifying the board of that length, I think, and you said 2 weeks, you know, I would never go more than 2 weeks without expressing.
Well, a couple of things. One, if you were to be gone for 2 weeks, it would like, your workload when you get back would be overwhelming. So you probably wouldn't want to be taking that length. But I'm wondering if you could make some kind of notation in here with a maximum day of absence that you, with this carryover, that you're only allowed for a certain length of time.
2 weeks. Yeah, maximum of 2 weeks,
Doug, did you?
with the carryover.
I did. I just want to make sure, because he keeps talking about notifying the board, and that's a difference between notifying and approval of the board. There's a complete distinction. One would be just saying that I'm going to be gone for the next 2 weeks, and the other is getting the board approval for it. I think notifying it is completely fine, but the board approval of use of vacation, I think with government entities is a little more questionable. Whether a contract can require that he get board approval for use of vacation time.
I think
Because
when
it-
I worked for the county, I had to request vacation. It wasn't automatically given when I
It's
requested it.
not, but it has to be denied for a good basis, and
I mean, if we were in the middle
Because it
of
is
a
a-
budget, we
it's a
weren't
right.
allowed to take vacation.
right. And if you're working at the treasurer tax collector's office, you can't take time off in the middle of tax season. And those are all legitimate reasons, but requiring somebody to get prior board approval for just general vacation, I question. I mean, it's probably
But what's the
possible,
difference
but-
between that and a county employee filling out their paper requesting vacation on certain days? And that, because we are the department head, basically, you know, in that situation, approving it or not approving. I mean, maybe we wouldn't approve it because we have a big project happening right now and we can't
Right.
afford someone to leave for 2 weeks. But we could
Okay.
say, okay, you could go for 5 days, you know? I would see any vacation needed to be, you know, of like a week or
Approved.
more would have to be approved by the board.
Right. We can probably put that in
And
there.
can we do that by email since regular meetings are once a month?
Well, we would have
It
to
would
call a
have to be a
special
board.
meeting.
It would have to be at a board
Special
meeting.
meeting? All right.
Yeah, which is 3 days.
It's not customary to have
Or
a
just-
meeting with like the chair and decide something like that, so.
No, that would have to,
You can't have an email meeting, so we'd have to
All
sit
right.
down at a table together.
Okay. No, I do know the Brown Act.
Okay,
Any
so,
comments?
okay. Are there any comments from the gallery?
I'm not ready to comment yet. If you guys have more discussion, I was just
Okay.
want to make sure I can comment before the vote.
Of course, yeah, I'll keep opening it, I'm sure. So,
Good discussion.
I think where the board is now is, correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, go ahead.
I just am curious, you said that when you first were applying for the job, you had a 3 to 4 hour conversation with Joe about the direction of where the board is, everything is headed and what's going on, and that you have a special skill set that pertains to that. Can you tell me what our direction is and what that is? Because
This
I would
board
love to
has
know.
changed. I recognize the board has changed. And the fact that you've got a settlement on some of the issues of the city. I've dealt with the kind of issues you had with the city, you know, and things like that in my career. And things that are particularly messy. I mean, I'm used to it. I kind of like that personally because it's difficult. But in terms of implementing this and how the district, if the district chooses to go with some of the things that are at its option, I have the skills for that. If the district is looking at simply implementing this agreement that you have, I have the skills to work with the folks and do that. I have the skills to work with a diverse group of people in the city, the county, the regulators. We have a new state regulator today. Felicia Marcus was not renewed, so we've got Julio as the head of the state board. And I think that's a good thing, by the way.
If I can, where we stand right now, and correct me if I'm wrong on the board on this item, is I want to get a consensus here, not necessarily a vote, but to carry over 100 hours and will not have more than 100 hours carried over each year. The balance would get paid out. And that to obtain board authorization for any vacation that's more than 5 days. And we can amend it to say
That's
that.
absolutely fine with me.
Okay, so is that just a general consensus? Does everyone
I
agree
don't
with that?
necessarily agree with the carryover, so. that's not really not
And those 5 days, that's a
participating.
Monday through Friday, right? That doesn't include the weekend.
Right, just 5 days, yeah. Okay, so your next item.
Would be the moving expenses.
Okay.
It's
And
expensive.
that's on page 2, under
Item
E
E.
is an echo.
Yeah. Moving is very expensive in the Bay Area. You know, I've looked at it and it cost me up to $30,000 to move it. I don't expect the district to pay for something like that. But I am asking for a one-time payment, and I'd like you to consider $10,000 for that. It would have to be for the moving only, and it's not paid until it's incurred.
Now, would this be a moving company's invoice for what the moving charges were? Well, how does all that work? What's
Well, when I have it, And I have the firm contract. I'd like to present the contract and get a district check to pay him with for that amount. But bottom line is, it would only be on invoice, so.
I thought you were in Clear Lake Oaks.
No.
He
That
lives
was
in the
where
Bay
your
Area.
last job was?
Yeah,
didn't
what
live there.
happened was, I was
Oh,
originally
okay.
looking at moving, and I had two things happen.
Okay.
One, my wife got cancer 5 days after I got the job, and I couldn't move her out of where she was getting treatment. Number two, the 2015 forest fire took out 1,800 housing units. The 2016 fire took out another 1,200. 2017 fire, which was 300 feet
Okay,
from my
I
plant.
just need to know that you never moved, but I had a question.
But I did have a residence that I rented
Okay.
for my entire time.
Well, I had a comment about, under moving expenses. If employee leaves before 1 full year, he is required to reimburse said moving expenses. I'd rather that we reimburse him for moving expenses after he successfully finishes a year of employment, after there's a period of, probation. After the probationary period of 1 year is passed, then he gets reimbursed. Because how are you going to have someone pay you $10,000 back if it didn't work out or whatever?
Well,
That
that's fairly standard to have to pay it back if you leave or you're terminated in a length of time, and frankly, I can't afford it.
I did have language I wanted to change on that too. So it says if employee, I wanted to put if for any reason employee leaves before 1 full year of employment, is required to reimburse all of said living expenses received.
And I agree with that. That's wrong.
I'm just curious, when we went through this and we had other candidates, we discussed not paying any moving expenses because
We did, and it's a board decision, so everybody gets to comment and have a vote on that.
Well,
So it's.
I've been looking at other contracts and they do provide moving expenses, but I don't know, they're big water districts, but there are some that provide moving expenses up to $10,000.
Yeah.
Where do you anticipate moving, Ellen? Ukiah?
I will maintain something here, but as of now, the limit of, so you're not providing healthcare, so the limit of the healthcare is I need to be somewhere about 45 minutes away south in order to maintain my healthcare.
Did you ever check that out? Because I
Yes.
have employees that are under Kaiser. I don't
Yes.
know how that works.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I didn't ask.
The way it works is they get a phony address and Kaiser bills them with the health history that my wife has. She's okay right now, other than an accident. That's an unreasonable risk for her.
So are you looking at Cloverdale then? Or is that close enough?
If I could, or somewhere north of Healdsburg. But I have a place here, separate, so I wouldn't go home every night. I did that clearly.
So the moving is for your main residence.
Right,
Not for a residence that would be here.
right.
And
it
you
would
want
be-
us to pay an invoice directly,
Yes, please.
so we would establish a not to exceed amount for that
Yes.
invoice.
Yeah.
Does anyone from the gallery have a comment on this particular item of the contract?
I guess I do.
Yes,
Finally.
Ross?
So the LinkedIn showed 2015 to present at Clear Lake Oaks. But my hearing's not great, which is why I'm standing up here. But just kind of generally, I'm listening to this, and I'm like Ernie. I interview a lot of folks, right? And I've actually hire engineers, not from around here. And so for starters, $30,000. I've never paid that much for moving costs for folks that make more than this. and they came from, Tennessee and Massachusetts and stuff, so I think that's pretty rich. The other thing is too, I think Carmel makes about 180 grand a year, and she runs the entire county. If you contemplate the size of this organization, and I really appreciate it, believe me, I understand how difficult it is to find folks right now. But, there's no insurance, that's worth $1,000 a month, there's no retirement, which, most companies do a, 3% match or something, so that's not a whole lot. And Alan, I don't know you from Adam, you could be the Ricky Carmichael of wastewater. You could hit it out of the park. But buddy, you better. That kind of money, that's what I'd be telling somebody sitting across the table. It's like, you better hit this thing out of the park every freaking day for that kind of money, because that's a lot of money for an entity that has, 2,500 ratepayers or something like that? And
About 5,000.
About 3,000.
yeah, give or take, right? And for an entity that has that and one employee, I mean, that's.
I think you should look me up on LinkedIn, you got your phone.
I did.
And where can you find healthcare for $1,000 a month? That would be a golden deal. Seriously.
Let me explain where I got to the 30. That's not just the moving van. That's the total costs involved in the move, with change of presidents and everything else. That's not just the van. The 10,000, the estimates I've got, it could go to 11 or 12. The 10,000 was basically what I was looking at for the moving company.
Yeah, and so I'm not the guy interviewing you, so
Yeah, but
so I'm looking at that, but I'm just saying that's richer than what I've paid. And then the other thing is the discussion, on lots. So, when I hire a salaried employee, especially a management person, I'm very performance driven, right? And I really don't watch their vacation much. I don't really care. What I care about, hey, they can run their department and they can make it run well, and they're on the beach drinking a girl drinks. I don't care. What I want to do is I want to have some definable metrics, and and I didn't see and I appreciate the depth and the transparency of your sort of packet, but I didn't see as a job description, which would be somehow with that kind of money, you got to be really careful with it and make sure the feet are held to the fire, and there are metrics and there are deliverables that are defined. Not I'm really good. They have to be defined. This is what you will get for your money. And I'm hearing a lot of worry, concern about hours, and the hours will go down or whatever. I could give a crap. What are you going to do for me today? And I'm like Ernie. And Ernie, when's the last time you took off 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I saw Arabia the other day and it ended right there at the park.
When I was in the hospital.
That's so appropriate.
and actually, and when's the last time, Ernie, honestly, when's the last time you worked 40 hours in a week? I bet you never have.
I was 11.
Yeah, when I was 11, exactly. So, I mean, working more now, and so I don't have to work as much later. It's like, and to be honest with you, that don't fly with me. It's like, I'm not interviewing, so I can say whatever I want to say, but man, oh man. Tough. And I also understand, like, what are other candidates probably, right? I mean, candidates are tough to come by, so. But at least I would make sure we had really good metrics before you sign on the bottom line, and make sure that you had deliverables that he's accountable for. And it's if he doesn't get it done. You can't just go on, I'm really good, show me what you're going to do for me. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to add one simple thing to what Ross said, and that is, those metrics cut both directions. It's nice for the employee to know exactly what's being asked of him. What is being measured is what he's going to be asked to meet. So he's got to know what that is before you can hold his feet to those fires. He's got to know what you're doing.
May I address him? They've just engaged in a settlement of a mess. And that settlement has a lot of pieces to it and a lot of potential things. And they don't have a roadmap yet because that's part of what I would do. I mean, if we get this contract passed, in addition to sitting down with each board member and talking to them, and seeing what they want, and to the extent they don't have a specific strategic plan, as one of the first orders of business, what's your priority list? It's also sitting down with the lawyers and taking that off of Teresa and beginning to go through all of that stuff and beginning to implement it. I mean, you've got a 1 to 2 year implementation of everything.
So I'm just going to interrupt so we can move along. But he did sit down with Ernie and we went through a list of things that are backed up and things that need to move forward right now with the district that are precedence setting, that are important. So we have gone through that. We can put it all in
That
writing.
meeting as a board also, so that we can know what's going on.
Can you please not interrupt me and let me finish my sentence? We can put that together in writing and have a special meeting in 3 days and sit down as a board and go through it before we sign anything. You know, we didn't require a full board meeting just to go over whether he wants the job or not and the goals that we had that everybody here should already know about if they read all their emails. Okay?
Well, and, excuse me, I believe that Joe, at one point when we approved Joe's contract the second time, we had a job description.
We did. So where we are right now is that he would like not to exceed $10,000 for moving expenses. And it's up to the board what the board would like, if the board would like to approve any moving expenses or anything between 0 and 10,000. So I'm open to your comments at this point to try to get a consensus on this.
I think 10,000 is about the reasonable cost for moving.
Ernie?
I think that's good.
I'm not willing to have moving expenses in the contract.
Okay, I understand your position as well. And Director Bauckham?
Yeah, I was hoping for 5, but if 10 is still, I guess, reasonable.
So it would be a not to exceed. Employer shall pay to assist employee in moving expenses.
I would like to also add, if employee leaves before 1 full year, if employee is discharged for cause within 1 full year, then he also has to.
No, but even what if he leaves because he just doesn't want the job anymore?
Right, and-
that wouldn't be
No, but what if he embezzles money,
So-
then we fire him.
The language I recommended was if
For any reason.
for any reason employee leaves before 1 full year of employment, he is required to reimburse all of said moving expenses. So for any reason, he gets sick and he has to leave, we're reimbursed.
Or we discharge.
Or we discharge him, we're reimbursed. So for any
And I agree
reason.
with it. That's, to me,
For
that's
any reason
standard.
at all.
That's standard. That's what I've always had to sign.
Okay.
Now, can that include if withholding? Can that include withholding part of the last paycheck if until you receive said funds?
No. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to touch an employee's salary. He has to pay it. If he doesn't, we go to small claims court.
Okay.
Governments can't withhold anything from people.
We're not the IRS.
No employer can just withhold money from an employee's contract, from their salary. You just have to be careful about that. It's just easier to tell him that he has to repay it. If he doesn't, we go to small claims court and we get a judgment.
Okay, so I have a comment on travel.
So are we in at least 4 out of 5 consensus on the moving expenses? Okay, before we go to the next one, let me make sure I don't have anything on the front. I do actually have a change on the front. It's under retirement. So it seems like the language got a little mixed up here when we added stuff. So I'd like it to read the second sentence. So we'll start at the beginning. The district does not at this time have access to any retirement program. Therefore, employee will not be enrolled in any work-related retirement program. Mr. Gardner has asked that we seek out a retirement program, but whatever our contribution is into that program, it will offset his salary, right? Employee agrees to seek either an IRA or a 401k plan for employee. Cross out the however until the next period, because then it says, if employer is able to establish an IRA or 401 for employee, the total cost of retirement contributions and salary combined will not exceed $180,000 per year.
And you've given me all those sheets, and I would like a step IRA. Be a step. Put it in the Congress, a step IRA.
The SEP IRA? We'll have to look at that as it will and figure it out. I mean, there was only two. There was the SEP and there was a simple.
Yeah, the SEP.
Okay, and those were the only two I think available to government entities.
Yeah.
So we'll look into one of those. Look into an IRA, but whatever 2 or 3% contribution we make, we will offset his salary by that much. So that was the change I had to that.
Talking about salary, when we agreed to when you guys agreed to the 180,000, that was as a contract employee, correct? And now we're talking about, well, as a contractor, and now we're talking about an employee. What is workman's comp going to be and payroll taxes going to be?
I think we figured somewhere around $3,000 a year.
For payroll taxes?
Social
We only
Security,
pay-
I don't know.
I wrote it down. There was only two. It was about I want to say 3,400 and something. It wasn't a lot.
There's Social Security, there's SDI, there's state taxes. and federal taxes.
Those are his withholdings, so the state and
Right.
federal, we don't.
But we have to pay,
You have to
well,
match it, right?
There's
For
not
this-
taxes. No.
for the Social Security, and we have to pay,
We pay Social Security
and state disability.
and state disability, and that's it. And it was about somewhere around 3,400 and something.
How much is workman's comp going to be?
We have workman's comp through our insurance provider already, so there's no additional cost there. We don't buy into any additional. We already pay for that. It's covered in our insurance through our current employees in our building. We checked that out. Actually, I had that checked through the law office.
The FCI that the employer pays is about 7.5%, so it does cap out at 110, I think. But it'll run you about 8,000 just for the FCI, the Social Security payment.
That wasn't the number I got.
That's what it is.
So 8,000. Okay.
And then you're gonna have disability,
Insurance.
unemployment, disability, FCI.
We don't have to go through state disability. I don't.
That I don't know.
Unless you
As
have,
a special district.
unless you have another insurance for it, yes, you do. Unless you
I
have
thought
a
we
provision
had
for
an
it.
insurance policy that was for special districts. It was for a special
Okay.
district provider. And
But the
they
cost is still
provide.
there. Cost is gonna
We've
be there.
already incurred the cost.
Okay.
Because we have employees and we've had contractors working in the office.
And work comp is normally a percentage of the salary of the individual based on their classification. If with a government agency or a special district, I don't know, but normally it's gonna be 60 cents per 100 for an employee.
So before we talk about that, I would want to see what we're going to be paying for those things, because that wasn't part of.
Okay, and just so you know, the reason he's not a contractor is because by law, it doesn't meet the criteria for a
And
contractor.
I understand that. I'm just
So
saying that we need to
we cannot
adjust
have-
the salary based on that. That was what we based it on, well, when you guys agreed to it.
That would be good to see those numbers.
Did anybody research those numbers before coming to the meeting today if they had that question?
No, it's
Well,
good.
because we're sitting here talking today.
This is our first time
Right.
looking at it.
I didn't get emailed this?
Yeah,
we got it
24 hours
yesterday
ago.
afternoon. I
Yeah.
mean,
24
there's not a
hours
whole lot
ago.
I can do. in that time. While I'm working full-time, I'm sorry.
Okay, so would you like to not approve a contract tonight and not hire a district manager tonight so that we
I don't
can sit
see
down and
that.
go over this again?
I don't,
With
with
more
all the
numbers?
changes, I don't see how we can have a clean contract and approve it
Well,
tonight.
we can approve it with changes. We don't have to have
It's-
something clean for me to sign.
It's not
tonight.
recommended when you don't have the contract clean in front of you. I don't think it's a good idea. There's too many changes so far.
I think the important thing is to move forward with hiring.
Yeah.
And if we could agree that we need to hire somebody, and Ellen seems to meet the criteria, if this is subject to some changes, is it possible to approve contract subject to changes? I mean, if it's agreeable that some of these items, such as the workman's comp. and
Well, what we
things
could
that
do is we
resolved.
could just have another meeting in 3 days with a clean copy for everybody
Oh, no, 3 days? Okay.
of that. It sounds like that's
Because I
what
know
they
that
want.
the next scheduled meeting, when's the next?
Not for a month.
Yeah.
So I don't want to
Can
go.
we-
I don't get paid to run the district, and I'm tired of doing it. Okay. So if you don't want to hire this guy, or you don't want to pay 180, you don't think it's reasonable, that's fine. Then we move on. But I'm not going to get paid $25 a meeting to run a freaking district any longer.
Okay, I'd like to
Maybe-
move on. Go ahead.
Can I
Yes.
just make one comment, is the board is able to approve the contract with whatever specific changes they want to make at this point and give the authority to the chair to sign it, as long as we have specifics. But if they're concerned about what the cost is for Social Security and SCI and other things, and don't want the 180,000, I mean, there needs to be an agreement that the $180,000 is what his salary is, and that whatever expenses are there included are going to be, attributable to the district. That's fine. I mean, just because you don't have an actual agreed to contract at this point, if you want to say, okay, we'll agree to this contract, but we'll have $10,000 for moving expenses, we'll have all of the few other changes you have in there, you have the other changes that you mentioned regarding vacation and rollover, you can do that as long as it's put in the motion and adopted by the board with authority for the chair to sign it.
So as we go through and make these changes, why doesn't everybody put the changes on their document so that you have it, so that you know what all the changes are? As we're going, that's why I'm going through this paragraph by paragraph, page by page. Yes.
So it sounds like the workman's comp and those additional fees are of interest. I know that Teresa earlier gave what she understood to be the number was 3,400. So
I guess maybe that might have been one part of
That's what she
it.
understood it to be. So if there's a difference, and it's been introduced that there may be a difference, I think that's worthy of research. But we do kind of need to move forward with getting a district manager. So that's what I would like to see happen. If we need to do it subject to those final numbers, maybe we can go back in at another time and revisit that.
So at this point, do any board members want to change page 1A salary to a lower number to compensate for the federal employment taxes and state employment taxes we have to pay?
Yes.
I don't know how, until we know what.
So it sounds like it's gonna be about 10 grand, is what it sounds like, our employee taxes for this person.
If I may, the number for the salary that I was originally told when I first applied was over 2. And when I got the employment agreements, I saw it was 185. And this agreement's 180. It has been reduced steadily from what I was originally told. I'm okay with the 180. And I was told 180 plus Social Security. I'm okay with that. You're going to get high value. And somebody who can do a lot of what you need done and efficiently. So
My concern looking at $10,000 additional per year, where does that fit in our budget? I mean, we can't just willy-nilly being like, okay, there's 10,000 for moving. We're going to add 10,000 a year to this per year. When we need to sit down and look at those numbers. We're not going to.
Moving is a one-time expense.
I said moving is the one time. It's going to be an additional 10,000, roughly. I mean, I don't know that we're just using that number right now, but let's say it's $10,000 a year that we're now adding into that. When they agreed to this number of 180,000, that was under a different understanding.
That's 180 with me paying all of my health care, all of my other insurance, everything else, which isn't inexpensive.
I know
So, you know, that's a fair amount.
And we came up with the 180 as $90 an hour. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That's where that number came from.
No, I know.
So we figured 40 hours a week, $90 an hour for somebody that had no retirement, no health care benefits, no vision, nothing. That was a respectable rate for the quality of person we were seeking. So if we want to change that to $60 an hour because we don't like paying taxes, then that's up to this board to vote on it. I'm calculating the Social Security tax right now. You can have discussion on this if somebody would like to change the salary.
I'm just wondering if that Social Security does change with it being a government entity. Do you know?
It caps out at $128,400 and it's 6.2%.
Okay.
Social Security isn't paid by some governments.
By some
I don't know if you.
teachers and others, but
Firefighters don't get it.
Those that have
Other unions.
Right.
$7,960.80.
Social Security and retirement. So they have both. So
Yes.
So Teresa, I mean, I've never heard of anybody like offering a wage, and I'm not defending the wage, I'm not defending that, but I've never heard of anybody offering a wage and then saying, finding out they have to pay, the employer has to pay, other costs, right? It's like when you make the offer to the employee, those costs are supposed to be assumed to be the employer's. It's the employer's legal obligation to pay that, and I think that's a little unfair to say, oh, well, I didn't know we had to pay Social Security, we're going to take that back out of the offer, but.
Well, but do you understand what I'm saying? When this was originally talked about, it was as a contract, period. All of those, that was what we were sold on, was everything, we're paying higher because we're not paying for all of these other things.
But if you know they're an employee, you know that the employee.
I didn't know they were an employee, and I hadn't been able to review this until yesterday afternoon, so I did not know that. So I'm just
saying that's always assumed. You've never offered anybody a wage and then say, oh, but I'm not paying your side of the Social Security.
No, yeah.
I'm just asking for us to be aware of the fact that we have a budget that we need to adhere to also.
Right.
So did you come up with the number?
$7,960.80 for Social Security taxes. It caps out at $128,400 at 6.2%. And there is a Medicare tax for 1.45%. So I would say fairly to employer taxes would be about
$8,000.
yeah.
Okay.
So unfortunately I only let everybody speak here and speak how they want to speak, and if it's the will of this board to take back our offer of 180 and change it for the man that's sitting here today, then that's the board's will. That would be a vote on the board. So at this point, is there anyone who would like to change the salary to a different number than 180? Other than Andrea or Director Reed? Anyone else? Okay, let's move on, please. The next item, we had discussed like 5 holidays. When I got this contract, there were like 10 in here. I think I can agree to 8 holidays. The day after Thanksgiving and Martin Luther King Day, I think should just be removed from the holidays.
And they also removed Veterans Day, if you know.
It still says Veterans Day on my copy.
On mine it says Martin Luther King's Day. I would think Martin Luther King's Day and the day after Thanksgiving are not normal.
The one that was out there, I thought had removed it. I was going to suggest to you that take out Martin Luther King Day because you told me you didn't like it? Good with that?
No, I didn't say I didn't like it.
My phrasing is inappropriate.
You gotta go.
That you didn't want that as a benefit. And I'm okay with
The
that.
day after Thanksgiving.
I would rather have that than Veterans Day.
All right, we'll take out Veterans Day and give you the day after Thanksgiving.
Cool.
I'll hang my flag and.
I used to have to go to work on Veterans Day all the time after I came back from combat.
Veterans Day and
So the removal of Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Veterans Day.
what about the day following?
No.
Keeping that.
Yeah, keep it up.
We're keeping the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So it's 8. The next one is under 4, under communication. The second sentence is just a type. The grammar, said phone shall be returned to the employer when employment is terminated. So the reason we added a phone in here is because it's ridiculous for somebody to have to turn over their entire phone for a public.
How about just saying district phone shall be returned when
I'd like to make one stipulation on that.
district?
That phone,
Sure.
I provide all my employees' phones.
Yeah.
And I've got the phone back
for
wiped.
only business purposes.
But I've got the phone back wiped.
Oh.
I'd like to
Oh, no, that's
put
not,
it-
it's not even legal.
I'd like to put something in there that the phone returns with all contacts and
It's
information pertinent to the district
Ernie,
business.
it's absolutely illegal for me to do something like that. Because that's a destruction of the public records.
I don't know the laws about that, Alan.
Well,
I
he
know,
followed you
I know
all
what
the laws.
happens when I get back an empty phone with
But-
all the contacts gone.
Yeah.
And those contacts were pertinent to my business, that
Yeah.
now that individual's out hustling on
I
my
have
business.
no problem with any of that because that's
Oh,
what's
yeah.
simply required under the Public Records Act.
Yeah.
Just something easy to put in
He's
there.
correct on that, is that you can't do that because it is a government issued or entity phone, and you can't just simply delete all that information. They are public records, which is why he needs a separate phone.
Yeah.
Because everything on his personal phone that would be used for personal business is subject to disclosure, so we have to.
And I have 72,000 texts and emails on my phone. Over 72.
So, that has to stay in the contract. We need a district manager with a district phone. I was brainstorming that maybe we could try to team up with the water district and just get onto their plan instead of paying for a whole new plan or something. So we can talk to the district here, and I'm sure they have plenty of fun plans here. We can maybe just pay them to get onto their plan. So that is how I prefer to handle that, or at least the first step. Also travel, I wanted to add to the travel that all travel would be in accordance with district policy, because our district policy does state before you travel out of district, you have to get approval of the board, whether it's you or one of us.
Well, that's what I thought, maybe just putting it in there.
Well, I have a question then. Because given the history of the board and everything else, I expect to go down and talk to regulators in Santa Rosa and occasionally Sacramento. If I'm gonna have to get district approval every time I wanna do my job, I think that's a little.
Are you gonna be staying in a hotel and?
If I wanna stay overnight, I'll email the board. I don't intend them to be overnight.
Well, so right now, the district policy is that any out-of-district travel requires board approval. That's the district policy.
And you can't email the board for approval.
So if we want to change,
The reimbursement it's approved with the reimbursement request, not necessarily prior to.
no, it's prior to. Yes, it's prior to.
Prior to.
So if that's the current policy.
It'll interfere with doing the job, I'll simply tell you.
Well, I know it's required with the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd also
Most
like,
government entities require you to submit a request form before you are approved to do any travel.
To travel out of or
If
out
you're
of
gonna
county.
out of county, and the only exception is if you're just taking a county vehicle out of county and coming back that same day. If you're staying overnight at a hotel, then you have to get prior approval. If you're just driving some to Santa Rosa and back, that's different.
So I would say then we would just have to update our policies to reflect that.
Well, I'd like to put it right in the contract, all reimbursable travel shall be pre-approved by the board, right in there. And then I wanted to add, using prevailing per mileage rate shall apply per the U.S.
Well,
General.
that's in the,
And customary
That's
current
already in
rates covers that. I mean,
General
that's-
Services Administration.
That's the
that's
IRS.
already in the
But,
policy,
yeah,
so we just
and at the
refer to the
customary
policy
current
change.
rates, I mean, that's implied that it's
Our
what
policy
it's
follows.
the IRS rules, and that's what everybody follows.
So the only thing is, if he needs to drive to the other side of town in order to incur the 50 cents mileage, because we don't have a district vehicle, I don't think he should have to get board approval to drive to the county building.
Well,
So
no,
that's
it's out of district.
Yeah, but no, she said any
Oh.
reimbursement. So when you get reimbursed mileage, that's a reimbursement. So my only comment was that it would say in accordance with district policy. And then if we change the policy, then, right, we're covered on the contract.
Yeah, I would work on changing that so that you've got, if I get a call and talk to the regulator in Santa Rosa, I will simply tell you the telephone with the regulators, you missed 70% of the conversation. I mean, I don't have to do it here, but I've literally flown across the country for a 45-minute meeting because there was a regulator who was so expressive that most of the conversation, she wouldn't say with her mouth, she said with her, with her body language and expression. But,
So let's put on this that the reimbursement language that is here, we'll put in accordance with district policy.
Yeah, we'll
And
do
then if you feel the need for us to change policy, that can be brought before the
That's
board
just
and a board
fine.
decision.
that's just fine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone
Wait,
agree?
so he would, so say he incurred an expense for driving somewhere for the district, would he bring like receipts back and it'd be a reimbursement? Like
You
he'd
get
write it-
paid per mile.
It's mileage. You have a mile before, mile conclusion, exactly where you went and what you did.
And that'd be a request for reimbursement.
Right.
Yeah, I did not have any notes. Oh, I did. On, I think Alan, didn't you have a change on page 3 under termination?
Yes. In the contract, moving's a serious investment. And in the contracts that I was given to review, there was a 6-month notice to the district manager for termination, and this is 30 days. Making the kind of investment to move, 30 days isn't reasonable. And the 6 months was what was in both of the ones I saw. One was a year, and one was 6 months. And I'm simply requesting that. The only reason I requested 30 days is if something happens that's personal, not related to the business, that can happen. But it would be at least 30 days that I'd have to give you. And I've always tried to do something longer, when I could.
So if we change that to 6 months, that would just be that's not for cause.
Right.
Later
Cause
in
is
the
different.
later in the contract, it addresses for cause.
It does?
Cause can be immediate.
I didn't see
I
it
remember.
for cause. I didn't see it in here.
It says on the last paragraph, if employer believes and subsequently confirms pursuant to an independent audit that employee has engaged in fraud, misappropriation of funds, or other illegal fiscal practices, employer shall not provide a cash or non-cash settlement to the employee in any amount.
And I guess you would
Is
add
there-
termination could be immediate.
and immediate termination.
Yeah.
Doug?
And the intent of all of this was he gets 30 days notice, but then he also gets there's a 6 month severance.
Not if he's released for cause.
Not if he's released for cause.
Yeah,
And that's what the last paragraph addresses.
Yeah,
He's
and
released
I
for
wanted
cause.
to add, refuses or fails to act in accordance with any specific direction or order of the district, exhibits unfitness or unavailable for service, unsatisfactory performance, misconduct, dishonesty, or incompetence. Add that. It's not just
Okay.
not
No, that sounds good.
Or is convicted of a crime involving dishonesty or breach of, this is just from another contract. Breach of trust or physical or emotional harm to any other person. So say, you get charged with assault with a deadly weapon or something, then we could terminate with cause. That would be a cause for termination. If you're convicted of a felony or something like that.
I think it was a little more vague than that, though.
And I have a problem with that as far as whether it's work related. If he's convicted of something that has nothing to do with his employment, how do we have the right to terminate him?
Is this what's written here broad enough to incorporate all of those concepts? Does it need to
I
be?
feel like we've gotten in trouble with broad things and.
No, I would like very specifics here. Termination
What? Joe got
shall
paid
be
a
for
ton of money.
cause if they act in bad faith or to the detriment of the district, refuses or fails to act in accordance with any specific direction or order of the district, exhibits in regard to employment unfitness or unavailability for service, unsatisfactory performance, misconduct, dishonesty, habitual neglect, or incompetence.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, if you can send me that language, that would work. But the other things about being convicted of a crime and stuff is
Hurting someone's feelings.
a bigger problem.
Okay, and then
But I would like to say the direction of the board, because only the three members of the board can give me direction.
Right.
And I want to
Yeah. And any specific direction or order of instead of the district, is the board.
now,
Because, as you said, the three votes is the only direction of the board that can happen. Just because two members don't like what he's doing, that's not enough.
Okay.
also, if the employee terminates, say he gets sick and he can't work within a year, then the severance he doesn't get severance. Like, if the employee terminates his contract before a year is up, I would like to see that. Because he could work 2 months and then say,
The contract actually says if employer terminates this agreement prior to its expiration date, so it has nothing to do with the employee. If the employee decides they're not working anymore, they don't get the severance at any time.
Oh, okay.
If employer terminates this agreement.
okay.
Employee can't get severance for terminating it. You had that in your.
Employee.
You had that in your contractor's contract, but as an employee, it's 0 if I choose.
Okay,
If he works for 2 weeks and walks away, he walks away.
okay. But the California Government Code, 53260, requires a 3 months salary at date of termination prior to the 5-year, guaranteed 5 years. So I wondered why we picked 6 months, or why we chose 6 months.
Actually, I think it's 18 months under the government code. It's not 3 months. They're entitled. You can give them up to 18 months.
Okay, I just wondered why we picked 6 months. Was that just from another
Because
contract?
it's not a year.
You had
So-
a year in your contractor.
That I didn't know. It was a different board. that
I
did
understand.
that.
I'm simply
Yeah.
saying in the documents I was given, it was a year and then to 6 months. I'm making, in addition to your 10, I'm making a significant investment to take this job. And
So that's why this is in front of us now. So if you want to make any changes to it, we'll decide on it as a board.
I'm just wondering if everybody thinks 6 months is a fair.
It's standard in upper management contract with government entities.
I would hope that if we're gonna hire Alan, we're hiring him for 5 years plus, and that this is gonna be a good arrangement, and that's not gonna be in play.
Well, you have to. You can't. I mean, you hire employees all the time. You have to do it. It's a business decision. It's not what we're hoping for.
Every public employee in the higher echelon has this kind of language in their contract?
Actually, I have the Assistant District Attorney's employment contract here that they just signed. And they don't have any severance.
No, but the CEO of the county does.
Yeah.
She has a 6-month contract, and so does the city manager for the city of Ukiah.
Okay.
They have
I
that
guess
in there.
attorneys don't get that. Huh?
Nope.
Okay.
You're
Especially
hired at the will of your boss for that, for district attorney or assistant.
So right now, it's reading with 6 months notice, and it's reading with a maximum of 6, well, we've
30
changed
days,
it.
30 days notice, and then 6 months severance pay.
And Alan requested that we change it to 6 months notice.
Oh, if we think he's not working out or something?
If it's not for cause.
For cause is immediate.
For cause is immediate, not for cause is 6 months.
Just, if we just decide and we don't have to
The city
tell
takes the
them.
whole
So
thing over and we're not doing
essentially,
anything anymore.
It becomes a year because we're going to
Something
give it 6
happens,
months
word.
notice and paying for 6 months, and then it gets 6 months severance.
And generally, the contract says 30 days notice and
So
it
we're
gets
back up to
6
a year.
months. I mean, that's what I'm used to seeing in government entity contracts is you give them 30 days notice and then they get 6 months severance after that. I mean, you can give them more notice. Usually when you give them more notice, they don't have a severance package.
That's what I'm saying. We're already back. We'd be back up to
We'd
a
be
year.
back to a year, yeah.
So,
I'm making a significant investment to come here, that's all.
Well, let's make
so
it work and then.
well, I believe that's
point.
why there's a 6 month severance.
30 days and 6 months severance seems pretty reasonable to me because
Because we're
you're
paying moving expenses too,
paying
so if
moving
we let you
expenses,
go, then,
paying the payroll taxes, which, you know, we had originally anticipated being a contractor when we talked. But so, well, I think, let's make it a moot point.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like the will of the board is to keep it at 30 days with a 6 month severance.
I heard.
Okay.
And then my only comment is maybe under E and moving, and under 3E under moving expenses, make it clear that if an employee leaves before 1 full year on his own volition, if he gets fired or if we terminate the contract before 1 year, he shouldn't have to repay the moving expenses.
I mean, unless he got fired for a good cause.
unless it's for cause.
Right, unless for cause.
If it's
Okay.
just at the will of the board, or the city takes, eliminates the board or something like that,
Yeah,
then he should,
yeah.
get paid.
Right, I just don't, I mean, if we're having the 30 days and the 6 months, to tie that into the moving expenses,
Okay,
it should say that if the board fires him without cause, then.
if he is released without cause.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
That way,
Or good cause would be the word.
right, it's released without good cause.
Okay, and then we're adding the language that Director Boffin provided.
Is anybody gonna be able to put this in the form of a motion?
I have one other question on 10.
Down
Do you
notification?
have an errors and omissions policy for the board and employees?
Yes,
Okay, I'm good.
Yes.
Once,
we do have.
I was at a place that didn't believe in insurance, and that was kind of fun.
Okay, no.
Now, I had a real big problem with one sentence here, where did it go? It had to do with that averaging of monthly hours. Where did that go? Something about as you go toward the 5 years.
Third paragraph of number 7.
7, okay. It is the intent of parties that be amortized over 5 years. This is a recognition that, so that kind of really bothers me, because if you're working 40 plus hours a week, it's $90 an hour. If he ends up, there's not much work after we get everything settled and we've got everything in place, and he's working 20 hours a week, that's $173 an hour. If he works 10 hours a week, it's $346 an hour. So there has to be some way, this job may become part-time in 4 or 5 years. Because if you're as good as you are and you get everything in place and it's running smoothly with the city, then the district position may not be a full-time position anymore. And so what we're doing is we're guaranteeing you could get your job done in 10 hours and be getting $346 an hour to do it.
And generally, that's what salaried employees means with the government, is if you walk in, if you can do your job in 10 hours in a week and walk out and you get everything done.
Yeah, but
it's not necessarily the same job.
It's not fair
at that point.
It's not fair because, like, if you work for a county and you're a CEO or you're
remains the same.
The job remains the same. This job is really
we don't know
not a
be.
full-time job.
So,
it's because of the lawsuit and the settlement and everything.
We can remove that entire paragraph and it doesn't affect anything. It was just an informational paragraph stating that if he works 70 hours a week right now, that's like getting $60 an hour. Okay, and then if he's working 30 hours a week,
I don't like that paragraph.
4.5 years from now. So it was, I don't know why that's...
But what he wants it in there for is to simply, just because the job reduces and because he does a good job of getting it done, now up front, you can't terminate him and say, okay, you've done your job.
It wouldn't be terminating, the hours would be less. The whole point of this is to make it to where the participation agreement and everything that's happened from the lawsuit gets implemented and is running smoothly. There's a lot of work that needs to be done right now, and we still haven't sat down as a board to decide what the direction we're going in. It could be the previous board and their idea of a package plan, all that stuff moves forward, then great, he has a job, everything's going. Let's say 3 years from now, everything's running smooth, the city's still taking care of all the things.
Say the city took over the overlap area, we have a smaller base.
It's not a full-time job.
It's not a full-time job.
So that the actual job has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the overlap.
Well, I'm not discussing that right now.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a possibility, and we could reduce our sphere of influence as a district, because the city
budget will be changed.
Yeah, and everything it could, and so I don't like to be locked into this. 5 years. I mean, it probably will take that long to get to.
To be honest, right now we have not even reached an agreement on last year's budget with the city. We have not even reached an agreement on both sides interpreting our new contract the same way. We have not signed an agreement. We sat in a room and said, yes, we both agree on these ESSU numbers like a month ago, and still haven't gotten that in writing. This is not moving quickly. There is nothing moving. It is like the pace of pond water right now.
I was hoping that that once everything is worked out in 5 years, we may not, we wouldn't terminate you, but it may become a part-time job after
We'd have to revisit the contract.
After 5 years.
After 5 years.
But I've spent 3.5 hours trying to understand the volume of work from lawyers, because I appreciate how involved you've all been, and you're relatively new on the board. I don't know, we haven't had a chance to talk, so I understand how much you appreciate what this is. But I do. And, they understand the volume of work I should wind up having to do this year, and they're telling me it's 1.5 times job for at least this year, probably next year. And that if stuff gets on, it may tail down a bit, but if the board then decides to bring in the billing, because you'll save $200,000 a year of ratepayer money, and you'll get control of your money. And if you decide to clean up LAFCO, and if you decide, which by the way I think, and if you ultimately decide to help the city by working with the package plants, Yeah, it'll stay at a high level the whole 5 years if you do all of that stuff. But it's definitely going to be very high for a couple of years.
I would say at least 3 years, very high.
And so, you're getting good value. And I just want to be protected. On the other end, I think that's fair.
But I'm just saying that after 5 years, I
After
would
5
hope
years, it
we're,
could be,
it could, a
nothing else
part-time
happens.
job.
The contract's 5 years. After 5 years, if it turns out to be part-time, it's part-time. It's different. It's a new contract. No argument.
Okay.
I just see it that way. If you do your job properly,
And ultimately, that is the
it will
goal.
be a part-time job.
And let's hope we're
Yeah.
not in favor of losing half our district and a decreased sphere of influence. That would be economically tragic for the existing
The
ratepayers.
district's dead.
I mean, I think that, it requires, board requires strategic planning, requires a discussion on all
We've
of that
already
stuff.
talked about doing that, yeah.
But, the opportunity that this board and this district could help this city grow is very real. Very real. And bring in new jobs and everything. It's very real. But it's up to the board, not to me.
Julie, and if you did do a part-time new contract, that would mean this one's terminated within 6 months severance. Because you'd have to terminate this contract to make a new one, right?
Not
Not
if
at
it
the
runs
end of
its
5
course.
Not if it's the end of 5 years and he wants to stay on as part-time.
Yeah.
I thought you meant in the middle of the 5-year term if it turned into a part-time job.
No, I think that it will be eventually a part-time job, and I wanted to point that out to you that,
And I don't have a problem with that.
yeah. Perhaps you'd want to by then go part-time,
So those were all the changes I had. And Alan wrote, those all the changes you had?
Yeah, and I think I talked to you and I talked to Doug about it, on when I could start. Originally, I had made it so that I could start tomorrow. But my wife had a serious accident last week, and she can't walk from the bedroom to the family room right now, even with a walker. I got her taking the MRI on Friday. So I don't want to sign it and then start taking the days. I think it's a very bad practice to start a job like that. So we get everything ready, give Teresa the authority to sign, and then, I'm figuring maybe 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. I'll have her where I can just leave her.
Here's what I'd like to happen. I would like authority to sign the agreement as we changed it. I would like Doug to implement those changes and email them to you. And if you think that something wasn't changed appropriately, you communicate with Doug, because we can't communicate with each other. That's a serial meeting. But you can communicate that with Doug, and then Doug can always call me and double check and say, hey, is this how you had it written down? Did I hear it wrong or something wrong? If for any reason there's too much conflict and it doesn't work out that way, we'll just have to have another meeting. But hopefully we can just have Doug email a clean copy to, excuse me. We can have Doug email a clean copy to everyone.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
We just have to be very careful of serial meetings.
We cannot talk to each other.
Because I can't talk to you about what two of the other board members
Right.
Well,
said.
luckily, we have a video recording of how everything was said.
Right,
So it should
and
be-
we will look at that and make sure that we follow what we had
But we can tell
discussed
you
here.
what we think.
You can tell me what you
And I don't like
think.
that or something, and.
No, but no.
you can't.
What we agreed to tonight, all the changes we made.
But if I say
It-
that's not what I agreed to or something, but.
Then we might have to have
have
then we'll
another
likely
meeting.
have a special meeting.
Okay.
And that's what he's
Because-
got the videotape for.
So everybody needs to be very clear about the changes we made this evening, and go back and watch this if you need to.
Okay,
So this doesn't turn into a record.
so
You can put the video online.
can one of us,
It's
already
always
online.
online.
can one of us at least try to put this on record as to what the changes that we've agreed to? Either you or Chelsea
Well, there would
or,
need to be a motion. for it.
So,
yeah, let's make a motion and then what you need to do is make a motion with the changes and then outline the changes the best you have them, and then we can try to move forward from there.
okay.
Because if I get too many comments back and forth,
Yeah,
we're
right.
gonna have to just have a special meeting.
So here's I would like to entertain a motion to authorize the chair to sign this agreement with the changes. And once that motion is made and seconded, I will go over all the changes that we made because I've written them
The
down.
motion
right?
actually needs to include all the changes.
Can the chair make a motion?
Yeah.
No, the chair
Can I
can.
make a motion? I do have all the
Did you want
notes.
to make sure there was no more public comment before we proceeded? Or you told them that you would open it up at the end.
Eric, Sean, hey, do you guys? Okay.
Okay, so you wait.
Did anybody else write down the changes besides myself?
I did,
Okay.
right.
So starting on page 1,
Oh, you have to go through them right now?
it's got to be part of
I'm
your
gonna make a
motion.
motion.
Oh, all right, there we go.
If you can.
I make the motion that we give the authority to the chair to sign this agreement with the including the change with the notation about the 100 hours being carried over to the following year.
Wait, there is a change on page 1 under retirement.
No, I missed that one then.
The second sentence has a
However,
period.
to period.
You remove however all the way to the next period after account. Strike that. Here.
Whose copy are you gonna
And then
use?
I'd requested a SEP IRA.
Doug, do you have all the changes?
I think so.
Okay.
And between myself and Chelsea
I'm
and the
just gonna put some
video,
of the video.
we will get them all. But they need to be in the motion as much as they can.
Okay, so give it another shot.
Yep.
Okay, so I make the motion that the chair have the authority to sign the contract with the change being made on page 1, that it's lined out right after however, and then picks up if employer is able to establish an IRA, and that would be a SEP IRA. And on page 2, the change would be on section 3, or C, number 3, with a carryover of 100 hours per year. Including the change on E would be 10,000 moving costs.
On C4, to remove Martin Luther King and Veterans Day.
Okay. And on number 4, change the Martin Luther King's Day to include the day, so remove Martin Luther King Day, but include the day after Thanksgiving.
And Veterans Day.
Remove Veterans Day.
Remove Veterans Day.
Veterans Day, but then allow for the day after Thanksgiving, correct?
Yes.
Then section E with the 10,000 moving. We did not make any changes on the 30 days, that remains.
Look,
Moving expenses.
go back to moving expenses is not to exceed $10,000 if for any reason employer leaves before 1 full year, and then it's if released without
Or released with cause.
or released with cause.
They need to pay back the
And that
severance.
we're going to assist the employer for moving expenses. We're not going to pay the employee directly because he wants us to pay the invoice.
Right.
So it should be employer shall assist employee for moving expenses not to exceed $10,000.
Okay. And we should be reimbursed if he's released with cause, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Or if he leaves before a
quits.
year
Yeah.
is completed.
Okay.
Number 4 is phone is returned with all contact information intact.
And then also, instead of the word said, it will say district phone.
When employment is terminated. Is
Word is.
terminated. Or is, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, number 5.
The employee could not travel outside of the district without prior approval of the board.
Actually, we
No.
decided to have it just say in accordance with district policy.
Yeah.
Employee shall be notified.
accordance with district
Do you
policy.
know what policy number that is? We could read over them.
We updated it not too long ago.
I have it here. But
It's the only one we updated last year. And then number 7, we kept that.
Kept 30 days.
No changes.
That is your motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Can I?
Change my name. The middle initial is J.
And where is that at?
J?
Very last
No.
page.
Very last page.
Alan G?
Alan J.
It's Alan
Alan
J.
J. So it would have to be changed on the front as well.
So we didn't take out that paragraph? We decided to take out that paragraph?
No, we left. It's a 5-year contract. So if there were other changes he didn't catch, can I make an amendment to his motion? Doug?
Well, it still needs to be his motion, I mean,
He needs to say it.
yeah, I mean, what changes, what other change?
The other change was on B under retirement. The total cost of retirement, insert the word contributions, and salary combined will not exceed $180,000 per year. Insert the words per year. Would you put that in your motion, Director Marshall?
So total contributions shall not exceed $180,000 per year.
No. The total cost of retirement contributions and salary combined will not exceed $180,000 per year.
Oh, just a per year at the end, gotcha.
And the word contributions inserted. Also, we added, one other thing you missed under vacation, we added that any vacation of more than 5 days requires board authorization.
Okay.
Consecutive days, consecutive. That was a change we made
With-
as well.
Including the, right. And not to exceed 5 days,
No.
consecutive days.
It needs
Without
board
approval.
Any
authorization.
vacation over 5 days shall require board authorization.
Yep.
5 consecutive days, right? Okay, and that was it, that's all I have. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone from the gallery wishing to comment on this before it goes to a vote? Gentlemen? No, okay. Let's do, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay, it's a unanimous 5-0.
Absolutely.
4-1.
Oh.
You should have said nay.
You should have said nay.
Nay.
Excuse me.
Aye. 4-1. Sorry. All those opposed, nay.
Ernie, you seconded that, right?
I said yes.
Okay. So we will get this back to
Are you
you
leaving?
with the changes, and then I will communicate with Alan on when his start date will
What
be.
day?
And I am looking forward to you starting.
I know.
So
Yes.
you're gonna start after you move, or are you gonna start and then take time off to move, or
No.
how's that?
Oh, he's not gonna, what's the start date?
I don't know because of my wife, but I figure about probably a couple of weeks.
So do you move after your start
14
date?
dates? Well,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter, I mean, the date. No,
thank you.
What we need to have is a start date.
Right. So leave the date open and I'll call her, but I know I have to be able to leave her alone.
Yeah.
So for the board information, we're looking at a start date approximately at this point, a goal of March 1st.
Yes,
Okay?
that's a goal. Or before.
Our target. All right.
Okay,
Boy, do we have a list for you.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Anything else on the agenda?
Yes. So, item number 6, discussion possible action
Can I
regarding,
excuse myself?
yes,
I'm
capacity, yeah, go ahead.
in bad shape.
ESSU agreement with
Thank you,
city.
I won't shake hands because you got a
Don't
cold.
shake hands with me. You don't want to be rubbed out.
Take care.
We, agreed on ESSU numbers, but do not have an agreement to bring before the board at this time. Does anybody wish to comment on that at all? Okay, item number 7, the status of the jail The city believes the jail is in their area and receiving the revenue for that, and the district believes it's in our area and receiving the revenue for that. Both sides are doing research and will hopefully present the research to each other, and we can come to an agreement on who actually has the jail within their territory. That's the only update on that issue. So that's in process right now. Number 8, discussion, update on cost benefit analysis of refinancing the bond. A cost benefit analysis was done by the county chief financial officer, Dan, and then given to
The city chief financial officer.
right,
Dan
city
Buffalo?
chief, yeah, Dan Buffalo, and then gave it to us. We had our people look at it, that are going over our bond numbers, and both sides agreed that it's still in the best interest of all ratepayers to proceed with trying to refinance the bond. It would still be about a $6 million savings. So we're still, this board has not given any other direction than to proceed forward with that. So given this information, we're still on the path of moving forward with refinancing the bond.
And that would, I think the next window is October.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So are there any public comments? Any public comments on that item? Any board discussion? Okay, announcements and other business matters from staff. Have we gotten any public information requests or anything?
No.
Okay.
Can I ask about that gentleman who was asking about, do you have information about the subdivision? He's asking
The
for a
will
letter
serve.
of will serve.
Will serve.
Yeah, so.
Is that for
wait.
that big subdivision?
Yeah, so we weren't sure we had the E ESSU capacity until we sat down with the city, and our contract with them requires us to sit down and agree, and we have done that. So as soon as we can sign that agreement and get a district manager in here to process that paperwork, we can,
Vineyard Crossing is what it was,
Right.
but yes.
So can we give him information that it's going forward? He didn't get any information, or does he know?
You really can't tell them until you got it. Because
we have to have a signed contract first with the city, a signed agreement, what the E ESSUs are available to us.
Once we get that, then we can let them know that we have the capacity and we can do it. And
Right.
Okay. he
as
just
far as I know,
reminded us.
everybody, as far as I know, everyone's trying to stay in touch on that.
Yeah, I have been trying to stay in touch with them, and I think he has spoken to Ernie as well. And other people who have been calling wanting to hook up to our district and requiring sphere of influence updates and other things, so. Do you have something to say on that issue?
Just on that issue, I know you said a little bit ago that you hadn't heard from the city with anything in writing on the ESSU numbers. I've been looking for emails that were reportedly never sent, and that was sent on January 16th. Duncan sent a draft on January 15th, the David Reporter returned it on January 16th, and that has all the memorialized numbers in there, so that's been,
So is it the actual agreement that we vote on and sign?
yeah, it exists. It was.
they haven't acted though, right?
No, they were, it was,
This board has, they haven't. Yeah.
this board hasn't, no.
And neither has the city.
Yep, neither have.
Neither's taken any final action, but there is a tentative agreement out there that
And
looks
there,
like.
there is a written agreement that's been transmitted, I think David was.
Yeah, we just need to bring it forward.
David was waiting for a final reply before.
Can we put that on
I'll
our
follow
agenda?
that.
I don't know if we're waiting.
Mark?
Put it on next month.
We're
March or
having the
June?
city approve it first, or when's the
Either
city
way.
bringing it to
Either
them?
way is,
I think we're waiting for Duncan to say, because Duncan made a proposal, David made modifications. I don't think he's heard back on those.
That's funny, because I talked to Duncan after the 16th, and he said he hadn't gotten anything back,
I'm
so.
looking at it right here. I sent a screenshot to two of your board
Can we
members
please
just to
put it
have
on
their
the agenda
comment.
for?
Well, yeah, of course, I mean, it's part of our new agreement with the city that we do this, I mean, and there was
Yeah.
a time, as a deadline to it as well, to get that
Chelsea,
done.
can we put it on the agenda?
And it's required for bond refinancing.
Yeah.
It's very
yeah, it
important.
is.
So-
And I think we finally, everybody's agreed on the figures.
And the figures have not been an issue literally since
No.
our second meeting.
Right, it's just getting the document signed. Okay. All right, so we will put that on the next agenda. And if it comes up that it's important enough to have a special need meeting to approve it because of bond refinancing, we'll do that.
I'm sure the council will do the same.
Okay. All right, is there anything else, any other reports or announcements from board members or the public?
Sorry, similarly, I looked through my email and both of those reports were sent to the DM at UBSD thing. I also sent screenshots of that to the two board members that I have phone numbers for. I'll tell you exactly when they were done. The November report, and I have actually a response from Mark saying he received it as well. That was sent on 12/11/2018 to dm@ubsd.org and 5 other people. The December report was sent on January 15th to that exact same address.
Okay, but
And
you
the
don't have a
same
DM, so
five.
I need it in my email, so if.
Well, you just said that you were checking his.
You checked DM email.
Because I get all DM emails, but I did not receive that one.
I have it right here. It was sent.
So Chelsea,
Yeah, but please-
write down these dates on your piece of
You can look
paper.
them up.
12/11/18 and 1/15/19.
12/11/18 was in November.
It's 12/11/18 was November. And January
January
15th was December. And then January was sent. this
Oh, yeah,
year.
well, I have the
No. December was sent January 15th and you said
right,
you
it's in
didn't.
the, it's in the agenda. I didn't get the November one in my email, which he said was sent on December 11th, so I'll go check.
Okay,
I'll go check DM's computer.
okay,
I
so,
actually have also a reply from Mark W. on 12/12 regarding the November. It says, "Thank you, Daphne." So it was also received.
I get all his emails. I must not have gotten that one to my computer. I don't check his computer. They all come through my email as well.
I was saying I was directed to have it sent to DM by
the
you guys
DM email.
tonight.
Yeah.
And that is where it was sent.
Okay, so Chelsea, just to be clear, the dm@ubsd.org, you do check that email, right?
I don't go check it on his computer. It's always been set up ever since the previous administrative assistant was in and Frank got sick and then she had it set up.
No,
for
how do
all
you see the dm.org
They come to
emails?
me.
It comes to her.
So you do get all
They're
the,
forwarded.
Yes.
they're automatically going to
They're
your email.
automatically like forwarded to my email.
Okay, then please go back and check for that date. Thank you. Okay, if that's everything now, we're going to adjourn at 7:50, oh, that clock is wrong, at 7:55.